Hey, welcome back to the Secret Underground Lair. So I've got some more logs ready to put up on the Worktable Sawmill. But before I saw them up, I think I should like to take care of this. This is an exposed belt, and I think we need to build a belt guard. That's what we're going to be doing in this video. So John came across a few of these trays that came out of an old store that was being shut down. They were used to hold, I think, comic books or books of some sort on a rack. And he thought I might find them useful. And I'm thinking, that might work for a blade guard, or a belt guard rather. So I've taken one of them apart, and here's just some of the pieces that I think we can use out of this. I'm going to start with this piece here, and I'm going to cut it down the middle, and then I'm going to bend that into a shape that'll go around that. So step one, rip this in half. I'm going to use my grinder for that with a cutoff wheel, and we'll just run straight down the middle of it. Alrighty, there's one piece cut. Just going to clean up one edge. It also has a nice flange on the one side, which I do like. I'm going to clean up this edge, and then we'll do some more measuring. Okay, got the edge of our piece smoothed out. I just did a quick measurement of this pulley. This is a 7-inch pulley. So I'm going to want to make that belt guard come about 8.5 inches around. The circumference of which would be, or half of the circumference of that is going to be about 14 inches. So I'm going to take this piece, and along this little 1/2 inch edge here, over 14 inches, I'm going to make cuts the width of that every 1/2 inch. And that will let me bend it around. I'll probably need to do a little bit of adjusting for that, but the intention is by making a little notch every 1/2 inch, that'll give a little bit of clearance so that when I bend it around, I can weld it back together and have a nice solid piece. So I'll go mark 1/2 inch notches here and then start cutting them. Now we can see that that'll bend up really nicely. I probably made that gap way too wide, but we can still fill that in. I have another trick up my sleeve I might use for this, but That's going to give us a nice bend. So we'll take it back over to the Worktable Sawmill and we'll see how it looks there. So that's how the blade guard so far is going to fit. I'm happy with that. It's looking pretty good. I'll figure out a way to clamp this into place so that I can get a measurement on doing this end. Clearly that the piece that I have here is not going to be long enough, but fortunately the other half that we cut off from this, I can take a piece of that and go around the rest of it. But I'm liking the look of that. That's going to work out very well. What I'll be putting in front of here will be some of that quarter round. So I'll have a little cage mechanism that we'll put in front of all of these, in front of the plate. So that's looking good. We'll cut the other piece now. Okay, so we bent up the second piece. I'll cut the slots in the second piece and bend that around, and that's going to give a nice fit up here. Got some good clearance. Got the bottom piece, so next step will be trimming these pieces off and then figuring out how to join them together and then taking the whole business over and welding it up. So have some errands to run today. Actually, I'm going to go in and visit John and then come back and finish up the blade guard. So I've got a couple Johnny clamps on this. I'm calling these Johnny clamps. Some Johnny clamps on the belt guard here, just to kind of get a rough idea of where I want it. And I'm happy with that kind of setup, so I'm going to mark the piece where I want to cut it. So I'm probably going to cut this guy right here where these two meet, and I'll cut this guy wherever they meet. It's up here. So I'll make a cut up here. And then I'm going to clean all this stuff off, get the metal back to shiny state so that I can start welding it together. So I thought I should just point out that as I'm cutting these pieces to the right length, I'm actually cutting them together so that when I go to weld them, they'll match up. The cuts will be in perfect alignment with each other. This is a variation of Fitzy's cut and butt. Next cut's right through there. So that'll be our belt guard. Those pieces will be welded there. On this end, they'll be welded there. And these cuts are perfectly in line. So next trick is just using the flap disc, and I'm just going to get this right back to bare metal. I'll just carry on cleaning up this material and come back when I'm done. All right, I have the belt guard all cleaned up, right back to bare metal. My little Johnny clamps holding the pieces together. I have a brace on the back, and what I'm going to do initially is just put a little tack weld here and a tack weld here where these two pieces join together. So once those two pieces are joined, then I'm going to move this piece down a little bit so I can do a little bit more welding on that seam. Once that seam's in place, we'll move on to do this seam. So we'll join these two pieces together. one of the huge dangers of welding with really thin aluminum, or thin metal rather, not aluminum, thin metal, is burning through it. And I am using 35035 wire, which is probably a little bit heavy for this material. I should be using 025 or 030, but I don't have any of that, so I'm just trying to make do with what I've got, and try and make little small shots of the welder rather than trying to run a bead. Anyway, I have the piece now tacked. I had to do a bunch of rebuilding up here on the top, as you probably saw me fiddle with it. Not the greatest welder in the world, that's for sure, but you know, for occasional welding, you know, I can get by. So I'm going to go move this piece around a little bit so we can do this a little better seam in here. Oh, the other thing I'm doing too is I'm using flux core wire. I'm not using gas, so that makes it a little bit messier too. But the bottom line is, hey, pieces are joined together. Isn't that what the point of the whole welding thing is anyway? So I'm just going to try and tack these joints, the joint right through here. Okay, I'm pleased I got 4 good tacks there. So I'm going to do a little bit more tacking up here. Yeah, carry on. This is where working with argon makes it a lot easier because the welds are so much cleaner. Using the flex core, you do get a lot of spatter and oxidation. So what I'm attempting to do here is put a bead on top of the existing bead, varying degrees of success. This is where you see guys like Bad Chad and Fitzy, you know, Tony at Fitzy's Fabrications. You see these guys welding and this just, I guess when you have years and years of practice, you're really good at it, and you say, hey, I'll try that at home. And yeah, this is what happens when you try to do what the pros do. You know, you kind of get a feeling for how it's supposed to go, but it doesn't work out anything close to what they do. But I think I might be able to get through it. So penetration being one of the key objectives when you're doing welding, I'm happy I got great penetration. I do have a pinhole in here though that I'm going to try and close up. And then for fun, we'll go over and try and grind this flat and just see what it looks like. See if I can pretend to be a welder. Just going to do a little bit of welding on the back side of this piece, just to kind of clean up and smooth out that part. Hope that works. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that welding. Fitzy and Chad might not be, but you know, I got a lot of what they like to call a lot of meat in that joint. So I'm just going to go grind that off now and just see what it looks like when it's cleaned up. I'm going to show you how I did. So here's kind of the good news on the top here. I got a reasonable join there. couple little pits right there and there. But overall, that came out pretty good. I'm happy with that. That's kind of like the golf shot that's good, and you think, oh, I want to play this game some more. So what draws you back to playing golf is you get a good joint. Down here, not quite so good, and it turns out that the piece here, oops, get you closer. I don't know if you can see that because it's kind of an odd angle, but this side was a little bit lower than that side, so I didn't have these clamped up quite right here. So I'm going to put a little more welding in right along here, a touch in there, and I'm going to try and fill this out a little bit. And then I'll try and grind that smooth again. I won't be so much worried about the inside. I will kind of grind the real rough spots off the inside because I don't want the belt to be hitting anything rough there, so we'll grind that down a little bit. But I want to see if I can make that a little better. Okay, I'm very pleased with how that came out. Probably put a little too much heat when grinding that off, but I think that's going to be okay. I'm going to leave that as is. And I went inside and kind of ground it down a little bit. So that'll be a little smoother finish. Not perfect, but it'll be good enough for what I'm trying to do. So next step will be glue these ends together. And welding these together, I'm just trying to make sure I have just a little bit of separation here between the two pieces to get better penetration. So I think we got that piece set where I want it to be. Let's tack it in place. Yeah, that's a royal grinding mess, but we'll fix that up on the grinder. Okay, so I cut a little piece of round rod, and that's gonna sit. And that'll sit right in there, except on the inside. And that'll give me something to weld all these little tabs that I've cut. So those little tabs can get welded onto something a little more solid. And better chance to fill it in. So I put in the round rod. I had visions of filling in all these gaps, but because this metal is so thin and I don't really trust my welding skills that much, I'm going to leave that as is. I'll probably put in another piece of round rod down here at the end, but for now what I'm going to concentrate on are the mounts that will put this onto the beam. So I just want to put these put that in here, and I'll get the mounts that go onto the beam, and then we'll weld the caging on in the front of that. So that's next up. Okay, got a little bit ahead of myself again, but got a little foot welded on here. I'll hold it away from onto the beam. Got another little foot welded on the bottom side, so I have 2 feet that'll hold the blade guard off. I've got one cross member put in place. We'll put the round rod here. I've got some round rod in there. I just ground off some more round rod that I'm going to be using to put in some cross pieces across here. So probably one there, 2, 3, 4 cross pieces that'll go in. There's the the belt guard all welded up. I put in 3 cross pieces rather than 4. I felt that was going to be adequate. So I'm just going to go over to the bench now, use the flap disc just to kind of clean up the welds, clean off the surfaces where there's a little bit of weld splatter, and then put on some primer. Okay, there's the belt guard loosely put in place. Well, not loosely put in place. It's not finished in terms of painting and stuff, but it is fully assembled, mounted. So I'm ready to give it a test. The motor spins this way. So the top is the tight side of the belt. The bottom is the loose side of the belt, so there's a little bit more play on the bottom than there is on the top. And we'll give that a little quick spin and see how it works. So here's a view of the BeltGuard in operation. I think that's going to work okay. The belt could actually be tightened up a little bit, but for now I'm gonna leave it as is. We'll try cutting a log and see how that works. But in the meantime, I'm going to take this off, prime it, and paint it. And there's the BeltGuard installed. Thanks for watching. This is a rather short video today, but please like and subscribe.